Welcome to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the how-to of creating conscious leadership for business, life, and the world. With ordinary people doing extraordinary things and being truly in control of their own health, wealth, and happiness. Knowledge plus action with a plan creates magical results. Introducing your host, Julie Hogbin, author, international speaker, mentor, disruptor and creator of conscious leadership and property investor living in the UK. This episode is around standards of performance, and I have written an article which will be on my LinkedIn profile if you want to go and get the actual picture that I'm going to try and describe in this episode. A standard of performance is something we need within any business, within any organisation, regardless of how big we are, how small we are, or even just for ourselves as a sole trader. So what's the standard of performance? It's a yardstick, and for those of you that are old enough to know what a yardstick is, it's 36 inches. So maybe it's a metre stick, but it's basically a thing which we measure the acceptability to the business and the organisation of an individual's performance. And remember, this is for us as well. So this relates to every person involved with the organisation, from the CEO to the frontline member of staff. It cuts across hierarchy, position and pay scales. I'm going to be doing a lot more on this participative type management type thing. I worked in an organisation that participatively managed, and I worked there for about 11 years as a partner. It's fascinating and works really well when you can make it happen. So the standard of performance attaches to a task. It is constant and it can be adjusted over time when you've got historical activity information, which may be through technical changes and improvement or improvement to systems. So standards can raise. Very rarely do they lower, very rarely. They will lower if you employ somebody who has the health and safety requirements. So standards are attached to the task, they're also attached to how you employ somebody as well. So standards need to be measurable and or recognisable. And good old adage, if you can't measure it, you cannot manage it. If you cannot see it, you cannot manage it, which is really interesting in this time of where we're all locked down and remote managing, distance managing, which is why this is even more important. And if you cannot manage it, how will you ever manage your bottom line, as in your profits? For any organisation, whether you're non-profit, charitable, business, third sector, everybody has a bottom line. We all only have so much funding. It's a great idea for any standard to be written down so that you can all see it and refer to it. It may be in a job description, or it may be an agreement between two business partners, dependent on the size of the organisation of your business, and it may be a standard that you write down for yourself. As organisations grow, it helps to create practice and procedure manuals and a staff handbook. This is your foundation for your business, and the sooner it can be completed, the better off the business and those working within it will be. It will provide you with a sound reference base for accountability when done well. And accountability, a definition I work with for accountability, it's what you have the duty to do and you are accountable for. And you can hold yourself to account and others can hold you to account, depending on how your working environment operates. It's a manager's and a leader's duty to have these conversations with their staff team. There's basically 6 measures by which to set standards. Quantity, which is a simple numerical standard, e.g. 6 visits a month. It can be negative or positive, so it can be less than or more than. A deadline, the timescale within which the job should be done. So before Friday the 25th, within 2 working days of receipts, 24 hours after the close of the meeting. Now these are baseline standards. You might want them quicker than that, which I'll get onto. Financial, working within an agreed financial parameter, and this relates directly to the authority level of the position responsibility. As an example, spending up to £100 doesn't need a second signature, up to a total of £1,000 spend per calendar month. It can also be positive or negative on a budget or a target. Negative, with no more than a certain number of. This is quite often related to complaints. So no more than 5 complaints are received within a set period. Recognisable, the standard can be seen to be met. This is more behavioural and physically can be seen or heard, e.g., as an example, a smile, swearing, dress code. And procedures, an absolute standard. Either the procedure has been followed or it hasn't. Anything linked to gross misconduct, data protection, timing of responses, those sorts of things. Standards should always be set at the acceptable level, not the ideal, and it's called SOAP. So it's the standard of acceptable performance. Everything has an acronym, doesn't it? And should be capable of being improved upon. So your SOAP is the minimum level of acceptable performance. Perhaps it should be MLOPE. Maybe I've just made a new word up. So the picture, if you want to see this, go to my LinkedIn profile, Julie Hogbin. I'll post the article up there and you can see it. It will just be called Performance Standards. And we have to be thoughtful of what our personal standard is when we are communicating and working with people. If our personal standard is very high, very quick, very fast, we know the thing that we're doing, we have been doing it for a number of decades, we cannot expect a new person with all of their psychological makeup to meet our standard. So we have the SOAP, the minimum level of acceptable performance, and then we have the ideal, which is the target, and then we potentially have our standard. Now, our standard can be lower or higher than the minimum level. So interestingly, this is a self-assessment process as well with all this. So why should we have targets and standards? Like as in the two things. If the standard and the target are the same, generally speaking, the standard slips. The acceptable performance is exactly that. It is the minimum level of performance that will be accepted within the role. Anything below that level is unacceptable, and the performance of the individual requires a conversation and a development plan to get to the minimum acceptable level. If the individual, for whatever reason, cannot reach that minimum level, acceptable level of performance, then for their benefit, and that's your primary, and the organisational benefit, that's your secondary, they shouldn't be in that post. It's classically described as a round peg in a square hole or a square peg in a round hole. Neither fit. The individual can either be transitioned to another position that has duties commensurate with their capabilities and skill level, or they leave the organisation. Positively leave the organisation with your support, goodwill and blessing. The ideal target is what everybody should aim for. Some will achieve it and others will not. And once again, a development plan with a conversation is had with the individual to get them to that level. Now here's the thing. With this system, you will clearly identify your stars, your steady individuals, and those that need additional support. They will all need your time and energy as their management leader, as their manager or their leader. Please ignore the title aspect. Regardless of where they are, your attention, whatever your title, will create great results, or at least better results. If the personal level standard and performance is above the target, and that personal level is imposed upon the members of staff unfairly, all will fail. Very often I have seen inexperienced and, to be honest, experienced managers, leaders, but they're not experienced in management or leadership, not understand the importance of standards and targets, and it creates mayhem. And as a note, if your standards as a manager leader do not meet the ideal level, be warned. And if they do not meet the SOAP level, be doubly warned. So an opportunity for self-reflection. Why set standards? It provides you and your team with a baseline to operate from. This allows them and you to understand that there will be an accountability conversation to be had. Fell over that one. It provides something to measure against. It maintains an equal standard for all. It provides baseline accountability, and you can predict more accurately the lower end results, so your minimum bottom line. Why do you set targets? And please remember, targets are higher than standards and can be expressed positively and negatively, as can standards. But why set them? To achieve greater results, to support people in giving their best performance, to develop people's skills, abilities and knowledge. This is your opportunity to provide your next level of talent management, for want of a better phrase. So you're looking for somebody to replace you when you are promoted out of your position. And I know maybe it has to go to open interview. Lots of jobs don't. You know, I live in the real world. But when you as the manager promote these rising stars and effective, efficient individuals within business who want to do well and willingly what's required, your reputation enhances as well. It will develop people's skills, abilities and knowledge to provide a challenge and a sense of achievement for the individual. You know, we thrive on it as humans. In setting them, so when you set them, be precise about the desired result, which must be measurable and have a time scale. So, you know, SMART goals. I've got a better model of SMART. SMART was good. It was developed in the 50s. It's a fabulous model. I still work with chief execs who don't know how to do it properly. I've created a different model, which I'll do another recording on. I'll do both, but I'll do mine and SMART. Things have changed since the 50s, believe it or not. Make them challenging. It's proven to increase motivation and results when the individual has the capacity to learn. Do not overload. If you put them in overwhelm and overload, it won't work. Monitor and review them regularly. This is not micromanagement. And make sure they're owned by the individual. So a quick episode on setting standards. Draw 4 lines, draw 5 lines actually. At the very bottom line, label it personal. The second line up, label it unacceptable. Draw an arrow from that one to the third one, which you label SOAP, so that's your minimum level of acceptable performance. I'm going to change that, it's just become MALOPE. Do a line up to the next line, which is ideal, and then above that draw another personal, so the 5th line is personal. That's your image that you can see on the article on LinkedIn. Obviously I can't put a picture on a podcast, or can I? I'll find out. I don't think I can. Anyway, so draw that picture and then think about where you are, where your people are. You can map your business and your organisation, your team, your directorship. You can map anything against this. But if they're not clear to start with, then it is a real struggle. Anyway, that's me for now. I will do far more. If you've got any questions, please ask. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. Ask me any questions. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on all my social media platforms. And I will, or the one of your choice actually, and I will talk to you all later. To know is to grow, but it's only to grow when you put the knowing into action. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Leadership Podcast. You can contact Julie on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and hear me out. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel for how-to videos and more content. And please message Julie to have your questions answered. Until next time, remember, knowledge plus action with a plan creates magical results. See it, say it, write it, believe it, and achieve it.